Hello and welcome to Pulse of Culture here on TVP World. I'm Stalia Strzemska. In the 1960s, when Poland was still very much engulfed in a dull and grey socialist reality, a new magazine hit the shelves. You and I was truly revolutionary, offering a glimpse of Western design, foreign movies and books to readers in the black and white world behind the Iron Curtain. Take a look. Here to discuss how that worked in practice and tell us a little about the style in 1960s Poland, I am joined by Karolina Sulej, a fashion anthropologist, journalist and curator. Hello and welcome, delighted to have you with us.
Me too.
So a very interesting exhibition just opened at the History Meeting House in Warsaw. And I wanted to start with asking you about the covers of magazines, right, as they're quite amazing. So they were edgy and created very much in line with so-called Polish school of posters. So can you unpack this for us? Why was it so special?
It is still special, though. I think these covers and generally this style of designing, functional design, is still very enchanting because it's a unique mixture of irony. They're smart, their sense of humor is great, they're subtle, they use various techniques like collage, but they're also very minimal, to the point, and they offered pure art for a wide audience that never happened before. And also they were very much eye-catchy and colorful and something that was way beyond the socialist aesthetic.
So a very big change to the dull
definitely.
Socialist reality. And fashion was a big portion of that, right? And you're a specialist on fashion, so do tell me, would it be, or was it possible to build a capsule wardrobe back then, for instance? What were some of the key items?
I think it's worth to say that Teresa Kuczyńska, she was one of the main editors of the magazine, and she generally directed the whole concept of what fashion is going to be in the magazine. Is one of the grannies of so-called fashion anthropology in Poland, because she figured that fashion is also an art and it should be available to the wider public, and everyone can use fashion as art and create themselves, be creative, even though they had no resources or the resources were scarce, but at the same time they could be inspired, they could be imaginative, they could use the images they see in the magazine, and often there were a couple of pages with big photo shoots, photographs, sometimes even borrowed from Western magazines, and Western magazines agreed for that because they looked at it as a way to soften the powers of, let's say, Cold War divisions. So everybody were happy, and at the same time, the clientele received the high-end fashion from the West. For example, one of the covers featured Yves Saint Laurent Mondrian dress, way before it was popular in the West. So it was here. So we were inspired to be stylish and create the visions of how we dress ourselves and just help each other out. And that's why I think with this flair and at the same time reason, we created a unique sense of fashion that prevails all crisis in Poland that we still have up to date.
I was actually going to ask you about that. Of course, it looked great on paper, right? But how did that fashion from the pages of the magazine translate into what was worn on the streets?
I think we're very sustainable when it comes to fashion because of our history. Our grannies and our mothers, they had to make do and mend with everything that they had. So they figured out unique designs to supply their wardrobes. And they were inspired, of course, by big organizations or even institutions at the time, like Moda Polska, Polish fashion. It was a big socialist hub of a place, but it didn't provide the actual garments. It provided prototypes, inspirations. You couldn't actually meet the demand, but you could suggest people that they can aspire, that they can desire. It was called a, let's say, dream capitalism, because you could see how capitalism works. You even had advertisements, but you couldn't get the actual things. So you you had to invent the things that could work as the things that you desire. So the whole concept of TIA was creating a sphere of magic and to have people survive the socialist system and to have a unique lifestyle, because it was first Polish lifestyle magazine, born out of Polish literature, Polish art, Polish sense of fashion, and it was good while it lasted, of course.
Okay, so let's talk some names. What were the top Polish designers at the time?
So Moda Polska was, let's say, a concept that was directed by various designers. One of the first was Jadwiga Grabowska, the most prominent, but then also names like Jerzy Antkowiak, Grażyna Hasse was also one of the most, I would say, appreciated designers, and also Barbara Hoff with Hofland. That was her brand, but also she was a journalist. So she used words, and also she used clothes to tell stories. And I think the Polish fashion was a mixture of something very practical, like how to, I don't know, dye your shoes to make them more colorful or something, how to make do with your boyfriend's shirt and make something more fashionable for a girl. But at the same time, I think we profited of this independence from the trends from the West. We could invent our own, and we actually did that. And designers now in Poland, they're still inspired by TIA, these designs, the photographers that work there, like Tadeusz Rolke, and also Roman Cieślewicz was the designer of the covers, the very first famous covers. He was afterwards, after TIA, he was the art director of Elle magazine in France. So
that's amazing, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some of the key designs? I mean, if you were to mention, perhaps.
For example, the iconic cover, the very first cover of the magazine, features a very stylishly clad couple, a miniskirt, and this huge hat, and they're sitting on a very special chair. 2 chairs, actually. The name of the chair is, the design is RM58, and it's a very famous design that has been recognized like the most desirable item from the 60s that you can have at your flat right now. And generally, the modern aesthetic of the time, very functional, but at the same time very chic, is still now very popular because it fits modern tastes. To our surprise, maybe. So we are inspired, and even people younger than me, I'm a millennial, so Gen Z generation, they're inspired by how people arranged their sphere of daily life. So they're inspired not only by fashion, so what people were on them, but also how they surrounded themselves, how they created this whole, we would say now, narrative of daily life.
So let's talk about furniture, right? Because that's an indispensable part of life.
So in TIA, we had photographs or even photo shoots, I would say, of famous interiors, famous flats of famous people, like the elite, I would say, famous writers or designers, and they showed how creatively they arranged their surroundings with books, with flowers, with small little tchotchkes on the furniture, and also how they gathered single showpieces of design from the time, like the chairs that I mentioned, but also something that's called in Polish meblościanka, which is, I would say, this huge package of a furniture that covered the whole wall, and you had like place for everything, even for a bed that you could take out and then zoom in again so that it's invisible and you can, I don't know, have a table instead.
Right. I mean, yes, and they're amazing, and they're still popular today, right? Because we still have small apartments.
Yes, the small. Actually, the period that we're talking about was called a little stabilization. So I think that this is something that we still seek right now, because it was a liminal time in history. Like, in the middle of a very dark period of Polish history, of communism, we had this glimpse of light from the West. We could inhale, so to say, how people view their lifestyle there. And I was mentioning advertisements. This is something very interesting, actually, because we kind of borrowed the way advertisements work in the West, but we couldn't, understand how to develop an ad because we couldn't get the things anyway.
We didn't have much choice, right?
Yeah, do artsy stuff, which is something completely contrary to how advertisement works, because he has to show you the product and you must remember how the product looks, and the advertisement, it must help you remember that. And it was something completely opposite. Instead, it was all about art, generally the fashion, the furniture, the advertisements. It was all about visual arts, and you had it for everyone. It was affordable. So it was something of a phenomenon, and I am really not really surprised that this exhibition is so popular and inspiring for people right now.
And I was actually going to ask you about some of these pieces, right, that made their way to modern times. What are these, and what makes them so expensive nowadays, right? These vintage items that we can buy.
I think that what makes them expensive is probably that they're scarce, because I think they weren't appreciated back in the days as vintage items. We didn't appreciate this period in history in general. After some years, after transformation, we started to realize that some people can view it as stylish, and we don't have to, in a way, be not appreciate our history, but we can boast about what we did, what we accomplished, that our sense of style and how we were educated is something we can sell. So people started to look at the things that they surrounded themselves with differently, and they called them vintage, and gave them to museums and so. But I remember my own mother, as she threw away, actually she was doing a show off of it, she threw it off a balcony, like the entire, I would say, communist wardrobe, and she was very happy to go and buy anything that's from the West, that's, the garment that she always wanted, even though they were I would say poorly made and less interesting than the garments that she already had, that she had done, that she had redone. So I think that only now we are appreciating the design and the fashions of the era, also because we have a language for it right now. We, in Poland, but I think all over the world, we're starting to appreciate more widely design and fashion as a serious language of social class, of social identity, and something that we can, select with knowledge, not randomly.
Right, but the magazine closed down in 1973. I just wanted to briefly ask you about that. What came next?
Oh, actually, it was a number of circumstances that led to that. Roman Cieślewicz, whom I mentioned, and also Roman Juryś, who was one of the editors, they were lured by the West to go and work there at Elle magazine, Paris Match, and various other...
a brain drain.
Yes, but also we had this social uproar and the wave of anti-Semitism. So it unfortunately took away many intellectuals and aesthetic
But what about the
trends.
70s? I mean, was there another magazine like that?
I would say that Przekrój, which is another magazine popular at the time, had a similar tone, but it was less of a work of art when it comes to the form of the magazine, like the style and how it was conceptualized. It was more like a magazine it was a weekly, so it had to be made with a rush, but at the same time, TIA turned into magazine rodzinny, like a family magazine, educational when it comes to family affairs, the body, education, sex education, and so on.
Definitely worth going to take a look at the exhibition that is
Yes.
taking place at the History Meeting House here in
so.
Warsaw. So we do recommend that. And Karolina Sulej, fashion anthropologist, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for watching Pulse of Culture. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.